So welcome back to another video of me trying to do a little bit better than I did last time, trying to go a little bit faster, and trying to get some points on the board for Team Art, amongst a lot of other things I'm trying to do. Now you'll notice that there's no music to be heard in this video, and you'll also notice that there's no live voiceover on this video, and those two things kind of go hand in hand because for a few reasons I had to wear my headphones on this ride. When wearing the headphones it was kind of hard to speak and know what the volume of your voice was at the same time, so watching back I'm just going to try and remember what was going through my head at any particular time and try and put it in on this voiceover here. I'm also trying to keep these videos to around the 15-minute mark, and so no matter how long the race is, you know, you're not wasting too much time having to skip through sort of boring parts, a little bit like what's happening now. I'll speed them up or else cut them out altogether, but try and keep every video to around 15 minutes, which include parts that are kind of the most interesting to watch the video. So here we have the first points scoring opportunity of the race, but it's on a climb. So really at this point I'm just thinking to myself that I position myself in the front group, and as we get to the top of this climb and get over the top, I don't want to happen what usually happens, which is I get dropped at that peak of that climb as they go over the top. So right now I'm just trying to position myself at the front just to have a good run at this climb. I'm well aware I'll be overtaken, I have no worries with that. I just don't want to fall so far off the back that I end up getting dropped. So that was really my main intention on this first section of this race. I didn't really have any intention of actually being in a points scoring position, but as it developed I could see that it was on the cards, so then I decided to go for it a bit.
I don't really understand what's going on.
So there's actually a lot going on here in my head. I had to scout at this part as well as I probably could have. So on my notes I knew it finished around 5k, and I could see at this stage that there's a few lads going, and initially I just wanted to stick with them, but around this point I could see that, oh hang on, I might actually be in with a chance of scoring something here. This is also the first time I've done a climb in such a high gear, or low gear, I'm not sure which way you're supposed to say it. You know, so I decided rather than the high cadence to actually get out of the saddle and try and press a high gear on the climb, which seemed to work okay actually. But I wasn't really sure where the finish line was. I actually thought it was 5k was the finish line. It just turned out it was an extra 100 meters down the road, which kind of caught me a little bit off guard. But I was well chuffed with that 7th on a climb, and really I only went with it initially to just stay with a group that I thought might be breaking away, but it quickly developed that it was turning into a points opportunity, so I decided to go for it. And then it was just a matter of kind of sticking. I didn't think these lads were going to get away. I was full sure the group was going to come behind and I would just catch on with them, which is then actually what happened.
Put this on.
Alexa, turn whiskey on.
Do you want you about another half an hour, yeah?
There are two things here. Number one, me nodding yes to you'll be about another half an hour with you was very optimistic. And secondly, whiskey is the name I've assigned for a socket that I usually have a light plugged into that lights up my little whiskey collection. But I was using that socket for my fan. So at this point I'd forgotten that I hadn't turned my fan on. And so in order to turn the fan on, I had to ask Alexa to turn the whiskey socket on. So that's what I was asking for there. I wasn't looking for a glass of whiskey, although I probably could have done with one. Now you'll also notice I've switched off the power graph along the bottom. I noticed it was blocking me being able to see the names of who was behind me and how far back they are. Now using the graph on the right hand side will show you the seconds but 1 or 2 seconds may not sound like much, but when you actually look at the distance that it gives you on the bottom, that can actually be quite a bit of distance. So I prefer to have that information there. I didn't really want to see the power graph of how much red was on, because that I think would just put me off. But instead, for the first time, I was also using Zwift Power Live and tracking myself of what my current average wattage was. And at this point in the race, I was conscious that it was a bit high compared to a couple of other guys that I was keeping my eye on. And so I really made an effort here to get my heart rate down, try and get that average wattage down before we came to this section that's coming up, which was really the section I wanted to attack, which was the sprint section that we're just coming up to now. So I know here that this is basically the last little climb part before we get into the serious business of the sprint. So basically I'm watching here for any groups that might break to make sure I stick, don't give them a massive lead. One guy went, but I didn't feel it was enough for me to respond to just one. Then I started to see a few others going off, so I put in a bit extra power to just try and keep with that, knowing that we had this hill to get over here. There's 1 or 2 other guys I knew would be thereabouts in the sprint, so I didn't want to overreact unless they overreacted. So I'm watching quite a lot of information at this point, as well as actually putting the power in. Now I see the village. I know that we're just about to get going here, but I'm still waiting to react to what's going on around me, apart from just, if I was racing on my own, just working towards the start of that sprint line. So I see lads going past me, there's still a couple of key guys I'm waiting for. I up the power to try and get up to speed, not let a gap get too big. I know the line is coming up now for the start, but it's quite a long sprint, it's not a short sprint. So I'm not still too worried about anyone being too far out. So now I know I'm in the mix. And now I see a couple of guys going that I know are going to be thereabouts, so I react to them. And at this stage I just put my head down, start putting the power in as much as I can. Probably in a wrong gear, it's something I need to work on. But basically I was just, once I started putting the power down, I knew to count off for 10 seconds in my head and just go for it. So by the time I looked up, we crossed the line. I wasn't sure where I'd finished. I wasn't sure if there was someone further up the road. And I was trying to look at the screen to try and take in any information I could get. But I was pretty exhausted at that point, to be honest with you. But I was pretty sure I had finished in the top 4. It was only when I watched back I realised that I'd probably grabbed second, actually. And this is where I made my first mistake of the race. Really, I should have known better at this stage to stick with that group that's going past me there. I think it was a lack of concentration, and it was also obviously a lack of energy or power after just completing the sprint. And I just couldn't do enough. I was putting the power in there, not too bad. Just couldn't do enough to get back onto them. Their momentum carried them past me, and I wasn't up to speed to stick on with them. And again, I'm annoyed at myself because I knew that was going to be the case. So I don't think it was down to lack of power. I think it was lack of concentration, that I didn't keep my momentum up a little bit better to try and just sit in with them as they went past. And once those lads were gone, that group up ahead, I was never going to pull them back at this stage. It can happen that quickly, is what I'm realising. That's it now, they're gone. And by the time you get to the end of the race, that group is probably going to be a minute and a half ahead. Had I stuck with them, I probably would have finished at the back of that group, but I'd still be further up than what I actually ended up finishing. So then I just had to decide to just try and grab onto what I could. So a small little group begins to form here with a few lads, and basically from here until we get to the beginning of the climb, I kind of stick with them to at least try and stabilise a middle position in the entire race.
Oh man.
So I've done what I could to stick with this group for as long as I could, but they start to break away now. And I'm conscious that there's still a long way to go in this climb. And really, I can't afford to burn whatever matches I might have left at this stage. So I just kind of, I guess I just give in to the fact that I'm not going to be able to stick with them. There's actually going to be quite a few other lads that go past me on this climb. But really what I need to do is just try and put in my best effort at this point. And if I could finish anywhere in the middle, I'll just have to be happy with that. Couple of things I was aware of during the race was how slowly that distance ticks off when you're going uphill at a constant climb. It ticks off very slowly. I almost want to blank out that distance and not have it in my mind at all and just keep turning the pedals. The other thing I've noticed I'm watching this back is my breathing. It's something I've been conscious of actually the last couple of weeks, that it seems to be very shallow, very fast. I don't know if it's got something to do with long COVID, but my lung capacity definitely doesn't feel like the same as it was a couple of years ago. Now maybe I wasn't getting used to push myself as hard aerobically because I was more into lifting weights, but I don't feel like I'm getting proper full lungfuls when I breathe in. That's not just when I'm racing. I find sometimes even just going about day-to-day business, sometimes just going up the stairs, you get to the top of the stairs and I can be a little bit out of breath. So there's a part of me just wondering whether this is what side effects or maybe long COVID. I'm not sure. It could be just me needing to train more and get fitter. And I'm hoping that's what the case is, that the longer I stick at this, that my lung capacity, my breathing will improve. Because although my legs were hurting at the end of this race, they weren't on fire like they have been at the end of some other races that I've done. They were actually okay, but it was more my lungs that were on fire. But then I guess that's what the last stage of this race is probably designed to target.